Welcome back. I finally finished painting the room, and as you can see, I already got started on the crown. It's a bit of a learning curve for me, I have to admit. I'm not going to be one of those guys who tell you, wow, this is really great, it's super easy, blah, 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 blah. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably about a 5 or a 6 in terms of difficulty. Not because, the stuff is super light, it's really easy to handle and all that. It's definitely easy to cut. But you got butt joints to contend with because they only come in 8-foot sections. You got to glue them up there. So as you can see, I've been masking off the area where I think I might accidentally get some caulking, some glue. You glue it up with caulking. And then right here I have a butt joint that, I just can't get away with because that happens to be a wall that's just like 8 foot 6 inches, and of course they only come in 8-foot sections, so somewhere along the line I had to splice a piece in. But anyway, other than that, it's moving along pretty good. I do have a plan here, and unlike a lot of videos I watched that use inside corners, primarily use inside corners, I'm going to be coping mine. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just what I'm used to. And when you cope and you lay out a room, there has to be a method to your madness. As you can see, I marked that corner cope. The end of that piece of crown up there is a butt cut, just a square butt cut. And the piece that fits into it, which is leaning up against the wall here, right here, that is a coped end on the end of that. Hard to see in the camera right now, but trust me, it is. And if you don't know what a cope joint is, you'll be finding out soon. The way I got this laid out is that I looked over my room and I determined that forgive my having to move the camera here. I got, zoom this back out again. Longest piece in the room is on this wall. And this piece ends right there at the end of the wall. There is no 90-degree corner. It just terminates right there at that end. And so since it terminates, that gives me some wiggle room in terms of sliding this back and forth. If I'm an 1/8 inch off, it's not going to matter because it ends right there anyway. I'm not trying to turn a corner with it or fit to an inside corner with it. It just ends right there. So given what I just said, the easiest thing to do is to make that a cope end. This side right here, coped end, that fits over the top of that so that I can fit it tightly into that corner. And if I need an extra 1/8 of an inch, I can pull on it and get an extra 1/8 of an inch, and it still will look okay on the other end. The rest of these pieces, I'm not going to say this wasn't difficult because it is difficult. That's a 45-degree, supposed to be a 45-degree wall. It's close to 45 degree, it's not. So I watched a lot of other videos. I never hear anyone mention anything other than 90 and maybe 45. In fact, I don't think I've seen any videos with 45-degree wall using this foam crown molding. But just a point I want to make here, this probably is not prevalent in a lot of homes, but down here in Florida it is. This wall, instead of having a defined inside corner here, it has a radius, and that made it a little harder to do these, what would have been, this thing goes out of focus every once in a while because it's got dirt on the lens. Hello, come on back. What was I saying? To do these corners to fit the crown in properly, you have to work the back side of the crown, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute here. This is a piece that's already cut. If I can stick it in front of the camera here. This is a piece that's the piece that's going to continue on to this. It's got a butt end on one end, it's just a butt. It's going to make that up there, but it goes into another 45 degree over here, right there, and that's this end. But in order to get it to fit into that radius, I had to grind down the back. Actually, I put it on a sander, trying to get it in camera's view. But you can see where I worked the edge down so that it'll fit inside this radius. And I did that across the whole board. I don't know how well this is going to come up in the camera view, but you can see I did that on a sander, disc sander. I ground it down, and the same thing's going to happen for the other piece that fits on this wall over here. Thank God I only have one 45 degree wall in here. This is the only one, these two corners. The rest of them are 90 degree corners. And again, I planned this out so that once I get done with this, which, you know, butts into that, there's one piece I just showed you, ends there. I'll have another piece here that goes to an outside corner. Let me impart a little wisdom to you in terms of cutting this stuff. First off, never rely on the factory butt cut. And there's a butt cut up there, right there, okay, that I'm going to have to glue another piece to the end of that. Now, I say never rely on a factory butt cut, not because it's not 90 degrees or it's, you know, could be off or whatever. It's probably, their saws are probably right on. It's your saw that is not going to be exactly 90 degrees. The difference between your saw and the factory butt cut may be very slight, but it will give you problems. So whenever you install a board that has a butt cut, make sure that you cut it on your saw, okay? And if you butt cut it like this guy up here, my finger in there, where is it? Yeah, right there. That butt cut I cut on my saw, I know that I cut it on the right-hand side. It's a right-hand butt cut. When I cut a piece that mates to it, I will make sure that I cut it on the left-hand side, which is what this is. This right here. Okay, and I know that this will mate to that exactly because it was cut on the same saw. Okay? And right now what I need to do is glue this up here, and that's why I put that paper tape up there. And you know, I'm talking like I'm an expert, but I'm not an expert. I've never done this before. So I'm pretty convinced. Well, here's another little thing, by the way. You might wonder what's holding that thing up there. And I don't know if I can get from the floor here. Let's see, out of focus again. I'm using T-pins, okay? I use them modeling airplanes when I build model airplanes, radio control model airplanes. Trying to get the camera. There's a T-pin. That's what's holding that up. That's pushed into the sheetrock. And right now there's 1, 2, 3 of them holding that up. It is not glued to the wall yet. Okay, there's another one there, and there's one way in the corner. So you might want to pick yourself up some T-pins. You'll have a tiny little hole, you know, in the crown, and you can just swipe it over with some vinyl spackle, and nobody will ever see it. But you have to have a way of holding this stuff up on the wall. I do have third hands. I don't know if you probably maybe saw me use them in another video, but they don't work well for this crown molding. The only thing you can do with them, oops, keep kicking my tripod here. The only thing you can do with them in terms of crown molding is you can use them, you can lean them up against the crown. That's what I did. Just lean them up against the crown to hold them to the wall. You can't put any pressure on them, you'll crush the crown. So this is what I'm talking about. If you need to temporarily hold something up there, you can just do this, and it'll hold it. Just leaning up against it will hold it, because that stuff is light as a feather. So, and you might ask, well, what are you using to measure the angles? I have a couple of fancy things here. Hold on a second. I've had this for years, a Bosch angle finder. Here, you can get it in the camera. Again, you don't have to run out and buy one of these, because to tell you the truth, I used the hell out of this when I did my wainscoting in here. You can see all this wainscoting I did myself here. So anyway, I used the hell out of it doing that, but I don't find it very useful for the crown. And the reason for that is that I find myself having to sneak up to the angle. What I mean by that is that I know that angle is supposed to be around 22.5 degrees, okay, it's a 45-degree wall. I get too short of pieces, and well, here they are right here. These are samples. I get too short of pieces. I cut them on the saw at 22.5 degrees. I go up on a ladder and I look at them, and if they're like this, you know, or like this, then I know usually they're like this, okay, indicating it's, you know, they're not cut at the right angle. So I go back to the saw and I adjust the saw a half a degree or maybe a degree at a time, until I get these sample pieces to fit exactly in the corner. And then I cut, you know, the real deal, the real piece at that angle. And again, I work these edges to fit into that radius on the samples too. So that's how I got the angles for the corners.